I forgave her. I shouldn't have. Because what she did next made the first betrayal feel like mercy. I used to believe there was strength in forgiveness. That it took courage to stay, to rebuild, to believe in someone again after they'd broken you. I held on to that idea like a shield, convinced it made me a better man. But I've come to learn there's a fine line between courage and self-destruction. Her name is Rachel. We've been married 7 years. No kids. That was a sore subject. We tried, but it never happened, and after a while she stopped bringing it up. Said she was tired of the tests, the disappointment. I understood. At least, I thought I did. Rachel was magnetic, sharp-witted, beautiful in that confident, effortless way. She was the kind of woman people turned their heads for, not because she demanded attention, but because she knew she didn't need to. She made me feel chosen. And for a long time, I believed we were solid. Not perfect, but real. Then I found out she cheated. It was last year. I came home early from a conference, flight got canceled. I didn't call ahead. I walked in the door expecting to see her in sweatpants watching reruns. Instead, I saw her on a video call, dressed up, laughing softly, saying things no wife says to anyone but her husband. She didn't see me at first. I stood in the hallway like some ghost in my own life. And then she did see me. And everything changed. The apology was instant. The excuses textbook. I felt alone. It was just emotional. It didn't mean anything. I never stopped loving you. I wanted to hate her. But I didn't. I just broke. Still, I chose to stay. We started therapy 2 weeks later. Couple sessions. It was her idea. I told myself it meant she cared. That she wanted to fix what she broke. The therapist, his name was Dr. Eric Lyman, seemed like the right kind of guy. Mid-40s, well-read, soft-spoken, not preachy. The kind of man you could tell your worst to and not feel judged. At first, he was exactly what we needed. The first few sessions were messy. I talked too much. She barely talked at all. Eric helped us find some middle ground, gave us space to speak without cutting each other apart. And when Rachel said she wanted to see him alone for individual sessions to work on her own guilt, I agreed. Encouraged it, even. I didn't know I was handing her over. I didn't know I was walking her straight into the arms of a man who was supposed to protect both of us from further damage. If the first betrayal cracked the foundation of my marriage, the second would set fire to the ruins. But I didn't see it coming. Not yet. Not then. All I knew was that she had promised me honesty, and I had promised her trust. Only one of us kept their word. Looking back, the signs were there. They always are. But when you love someone, really love them, you develop a kind of selective blindness. You don't see what hurts. You rewrite what you can't explain. You protect them from the truth, even when the truth is standing right in front of you. That's what I did with Rachel. It started small. She started working later than usual, staying behind at the office to catch up. I texted her around 6 or 7, no answer. She'd come home after 9. Said she'd turned her phone off to focus. I believed her. Then came the distance. Physical, emotional, everything felt colder. She stopped reaching for me in bed. We used to talk about our days, our dreams, random nonsense that made us laugh. That faded into silence. A phone screen between us every night. Locked, tilted away from me. When I asked if something was wrong, she smiled and said, "You're overthinking again." I remember the first real punch to my gut. It wasn't catching her in the act. It was a scent. She came home one night, hair done. I still outlined in makeup, wearing a blouse I hadn't seen before. I hugged her, and her perfume smelled different. Not unfamiliar. Just not hers. I said nothing. Later that night, I lay awake while she slept beside me, peaceful as ever. And I told myself I was paranoid. I blamed work stress, hormones, boredom, anything but her. A week later, I came home early. She was in the shower. Her phone was on the nightstand. I never meant to touch it. I swear to God, I didn't. But it lit up. A message preview from someone named Ava. I didn't even think. I tapped it open. It wasn't Ava. "I miss the way your skin tastes." He doesn't know, does he? "Can I see you tomorrow? I need to feel you again." My chest went hollow. There were photos. Messages going back months. Locations. Hotel names. She'd built a whole other life in between the hours she told me she was exhausted or staying late. She wasn't exhausted. She was elsewhere. I put the phone down. Sat on the edge of the bed like I was trying to wake up from a dream. The water in the bathroom stopped. She came out in a towel, humming to herself, saw my face, and froze. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just asked, very quietly, Who is he? Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Then came the tears, the apologies, the shaking hands, the breakdown. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. I felt invisible. I didn't know how to tell you. She swore she still loved me, that it was just once. I knew it wasn't. She promised she wanted to make it right. She begged me not to give up on us. And you know what? I didn't. I told her I'd stay on one condition. We'd go to therapy. We'd face this together. We'd rebuild. I didn't know it then, but by agreeing to that, I was giving her the space to do it again. His name was Dr. Eric Lyman. I remember sitting in that waiting room for the first time, Rachel beside me, legs crossed, arms folded. She was dressed like she was heading into a business negotiation, not like a woman trying to save her marriage. Her eyes were locked on the door, jaws set like stone. I, on the other hand, felt like I was about to confess to a crime I didn't commit. Then the door opened, and out came Eric. He looked normal. Not too polished, not too messy. Early 40s, probably. Clean haircut, glasses, a slightly worn wedding ring. His office smelled faintly of cedar and peppermint. There was one of those Himalayan salt lamps glowing in the corner. 2 armchairs angled toward each other, not facing him, but each other. Smart design. Symbolic, even. He welcomed us with a voice like warm tea. Slow, measured, professional. The kind of voice you immediately trust without knowing why. I'm here to listen, not to take sides. And not to fix you, but to help you see what needs fixing. It felt good. That first session, I did most of the talking. I talked about how I felt blindsided, betrayed, hollowed out. How I wanted to understand what went wrong, what I did wrong. I used the word failure at least a dozen times. Rachel didn't interrupt. She didn't cry. She just watched me. Quiet. Blank. When Eric finally asked her to speak, she said something I'll never forget. I don't even recognize the person I became. I hated what I was doing, and I hated that I didn't stop. That was the first time I thought we might actually be okay. We started going weekly. Eric was good, or at least he seemed that way. He challenged us gently. He gave us assignments. He asked the right questions at the right time. At the end of each session, he'd walk us to the door and say, "You're both brave for showing up. That matters more than you think." And I believed him. We even laughed once or twice, not bitterly, but genuinely. There was a moment where Rachel looked at me like she used to. Not with guilt, not with anger, just realness. Like she saw me again. I remember thinking, maybe this is the beginning of our second chapter. After a few sessions, Rachel asked if she could see Eric alone sometimes. Not behind my back. She brought it up during a session. Said she needed space to untangle her own guilt, and that she didn't want to bring all that mess into our shared time. Eric nodded thoughtfully. That could be helpful, as long as both of you are comfortable with it. Of course I said yes. Why wouldn't I? She was trying. I was trying. And Eric was helping. He was neutral. Safe. Professional. At least, that's what I thought. But things began to shift. Rachel started dressing up more for therapy. Not dramatically, just enough that I noticed. Small details, lipstick, perfume, jewelry she hadn't worn in months. I teased her once, playfully. "You're really glamming up for therapy these days." She rolled her eyes, smirked. "Maybe I'm just trying to look like the woman you fell in love with." Sweet, right? But something in her voice didn't land the way it used to. It felt rehearsed. Hollow. Still, I let it go. Because the truth is, I was afraid. Afraid that if I questioned too much, I'd scare her away. Afraid that if I showed distrust, I'd push her back toward the version of herself who made those decisions the first time. So I swallowed it. The changes. The silence. The nagging discomfort. All of it. Because I believed Eric was helping us heal. Because I believed we were healing. Because what kind of man suspects the one person who's supposed to be keeping you both from falling apart? But deep down, a voice was already whispering, "This is too familiar. And you're ignoring it again." There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It doesn't feel calm or restful. It feels like the moment in a horror movie where the music cuts and the audience holds its breath because something is behind the door, and everyone knows it but the character on screen. That was what therapy started to feel like. Not right away. Not obviously. But slowly, like a shifting weight in the room. Rachel began showing up early. At first it was 10 minutes. Then 20. Then half an hour. "I just like having time to decompress before we start," she said. Eric seemed fine with it. They'd be in the office chatting when I arrived. I could hear their voices through the door. Not flirting, not laughing, just talking. But with an ease I hadn't heard from her in months. When I walked in, the mood would shift. She'd cross her legs. He'd straighten his notes. The room went from warm to polite. Polite is a terrible temperature for therapy. At home, she said less and less. The little moments, brushing teeth side by side, cooking together, folding laundry, they all faded. Her phone stayed glued to her hand. She stopped sleeping as much. Started working out again. Joined a yoga class. Read self-help books she used to mock. On the surface, it all looked like growth. But it didn't feel like growth. It felt like departure. One night, we were sitting on the couch, watching something on Netflix. She got a text. She smiled at it, the kind of smile you give someone who's just made you feel important. Then she turned the screen away from me. She didn't realize I saw the contact name flash for a split second. Yell. Eric Lyman. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Instead, I waited. Watched. The next week, she told me she wanted to do individual sessions only for a while. Said couples therapy was starting to feel performative, and she needed space to work on herself, one-on-one. I asked her if that was something Eric suggested. She paused, just for a beat, then smiled. It came up. He said it could help me focus inward, instead of just on how I hurt you. And just like that, I was the burden again. The damage. The reason she needed healing, not the one who was healing alongside her. But I nodded. Said okay. Told her I supported her. I didn't tell her what I'd seen, or what I was feeling. Because here's the messed up thing. I still didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe she would do it again. I didn't want to believe he would. He was our safe place. Our neutral ground. The one man in the world who knew the damage and was supposed to help us hold the pieces. To even consider that they might be doing something. It felt insane. And that's what scared me most. Not the suspicion. Not the gut feeling. But the fact that I was afraid to trust myself again. Because last time, I ignored the signs. I told myself I was being dramatic. And I ended up shattered. So now, faced with the same storm clouds, I chose silence. Not because I didn't see them forming, but because I didn't think I could survive the thunder a second time. There's a certain kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from work or lack of sleep. It comes from pretending you don't see what's right in front of you. From walking through your own house like a stranger. From living with someone you still love, but no longer believe. That's where I was. Not angry. Not panicked. Just hollow. Rachel stopped asking how my day was. She started sleeping in the guest room on the nights she came home late, which were more and more frequent. Her explanation? Sometimes I just need to be alone. I can't process with someone watching me. I told myself that was fair. She was working on herself. Healing. I should be patient. Understanding. But the truth was, I wasn't living with a wife anymore. I was living with a woman who treated me like a polite inconvenience. And I still had no proof. No confession. Just moments that didn't make sense. Like the time she left for therapy, and I checked the app that tracks our shared calendar. The appointment had been rescheduled for the following day. I asked her, casually, when she got home. How was the session today? Heavy, she said. I was tired. We went deep. That was the first time I let myself believe it, even for just a second. Something was happening. Not just between her and someone else. Between them. Her and Eric. I started watching them more closely at our occasional joint sessions. She sat differently now. More relaxed. Crossed legs angled slightly toward him. She laughed at his dry little comments. Sometimes she'd finish his sentences, something she never did with me. And he was always composed. Always professional. But there was something about the way he looked at her when she wasn't speaking. Like he was waiting for something more. The worst part was that I still doubted myself. I kept asking. Am I traumatized? Am I projecting? Am I just looking for betrayal in every shadow now? Because if I was wrong, and I accused them of something that didn't happen, I'd be the one who broke us. Again. So I didn't confront. I observed. I noticed how she started wearing perfume again, but not the one I used to buy her. How she stopped saying therapy and started saying my session. How she always left just a few minutes earlier than she needed to, and returned just a little later than she should have. Then one night, late, I woke up to the sound of her voice. She was in the kitchen, speaking quietly on the phone. I stayed in the hallway, just far enough to hear tone, not words. But her laugh. It was the same one she used to give me when we were first dating. A light, intimate sound I hadn't heard in years. And something in me, something primal, tired, and utterly done, decided that I needed to know. Not guess. Not suspect. No. The next morning, I drove to Eric's office. I didn't have an appointment. I didn't knock. I sat in my car across the street with the windows up and the engine off. Waiting. At exactly 11:02 a.m., Rachel arrived. She looked different. Hair curled. Subtle makeup. That blouse. The one she only wore on anniversaries. Eric opened the door for her himself. She smiled. They didn't hug. They didn't touch. But I've never seen two people look more familiar in my life. I stayed parked there for the full hour. She walked out alone. Didn't look back. Eric came out 3 minutes later, locking the door, texting someone on his phone. Smiling. I sat there staring at my steering wheel. And I finally said it out loud. She's doing it again. And this time, it's with him. It happened on a Tuesday. The kind of day that gives you no warning. Sky clear. Air quiet. A morning like any other. She forgot her phone. That's all it was. She left it charging on the kitchen counter, something she never did. Rachel guarded her phone like it was an extension of her body. Took it to the bathroom. Slept with it under her pillow. Turned it face down by default. But that morning, she was rushing. She had a private session with Eric. Said she was running late. She kissed me on the cheek, a dry, mechanical gesture, and grabbed her bag. 10 minutes after she left, her phone buzzed. I didn't touch it. Not at first. I stared at it. A name lit up the screen. Yell. It was him. Of course it was. I didn't plan to open it. I swear I didn't. But the notification stayed there. Waiting. Daring me. And then it buzzed again. This time, I read it. Still thinking about last night. You're impossible to forget. A cold flush spread across my chest. I opened the thread. And there it was. Everything. Messages going back months. Conversations layered with intimacy, wit, comfort. Secret jokes. Inside references. Phrases that hit like bullets. You're the only place I feel honest. I dreamed about you again. Same hotel. Same bed. He still thinks we're rebuilding. Poor man. He doesn't see it. I wish we didn't have to hide, but part of me likes that we do. One photo. Just one. A close-up. Not graphic, intimate. Her lying on a pillow, smiling at the camera. Her necklace visible. The one I gave her on our 5th anniversary. That nearly did me in. But what broke me was the voice message. 30 seconds. Her voice, breathy and quiet. Whispering his name. Telling him she missed the way his hands felt. That she wanted their next session to be just the two of them. No clocks, no couches, no pretense. I sat down on the floor, holding that phone like it was radioactive. There were no more excuses. No gray areas. No, maybe I'm paranoid. It was all real. Worse than real. Strategic. While I was bleeding out, she'd been crafting a love story behind my back, with the one person who knew every weakness I had. And he let it happen. He didn't just let it. He participated. He heard my pain. He heard her confessions. He looked me in the eye and told me we were making progress. All while taking her apart in private and calling it therapy. I didn't cry. I thought I would. But I didn't. I just felt still. Still in that awful, heavy way, like being buried under snow. Like screaming inside your head while your body forgets how to move. I don't know how long I sat there. The sunlight shifted across the floor. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from him. Can't stop thinking about your voice. You're still in my head. I finally stood up. I took a screenshot of every message. Every photo. Every timestamp. Then I put her phone back exactly where I found it. Plugged in. Charging. Unread messages glowing softly like secrets in the dark. And I waited. She came home that night like nothing happened. Tossed her keys in the dish. Asked if I wanted anything from takeout. Complained about traffic. I said yes. Pad Thai. We sat on the couch, a show playing in the background, food between us. She smiled at something on her phone. I looked over and asked her, "Did you have a good session today?" She looked up, blinked once, then smiled. Yeah, it helped. There comes a moment, if you've ever been truly betrayed, when something inside you just shuts off. Not out of weakness, not out of grief, but because your soul finally runs out of places to hide. For me, that moment came 48 hours after I read their messages. I didn't sleep much. I couldn't. I lay awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling, her steady breathing beside me like a metronome of someone else's piece. The world didn't feel real anymore. The walls, the bed, her voice, even my own thoughts, everything had this blurry, detached quality, like I was watching myself from a few feet away. She went about her day as if nothing had changed. She smiled, laughed at her phone, sipped her coffee with her legs tucked under her on the couch, completely unaware that I knew. That I had seen everything. That every time she touched her phone, I could still hear her voice on that recording. I wasn't just angry. I was humiliated. Not only had she cheated again, she had done it smarter this time, not some dumb office fling, but with someone who had full access to my soul. Someone I had trusted to help me put myself back together. Someone who had read the script of my pain, then stolen the lead role. And the worst part? I still loved her. That's the thing people don't talk about with betrayal. It doesn't kill love. It just poisons it. And every time you feel it trying to surface again, it hurts even more. But this time, I didn't confront her right away. I waited. Because I wanted her to lie to me again. I wanted to see if she could. 2 days after I saw the messages, we had another joint session with Eric. I almost canceled. But no, I needed it. I needed the performance. I needed to watch them play their roles right in front of me and see if either of them flinched. I arrived before she did. Eric greeted me with his usual calm smile. "Hey, have you been holding up since last time?" he asked, his voice the same warm silk it always was. "Fine," I said. He gestured for me to sit, and I did. The room looked the same, but it felt different. Like I could finally see the threads in the wallpaper, the dust in the corners, the tiny cracks in the mask he wore. Rachel walked in a few minutes later, cheeks flushed from the cold. She smiled at Eric. Not at me. "Sorry I'm late," she said. "Traffic." Eric gave her that soft nod of understanding. "No worries. Let's get started." We talked about nothing. Or at least, they did. She mentioned work stress, needing space, feeling unseen. Eric nodded, prodded gently, affirmed. I said little. Just watched. Until Eric asked me, "How are you feeling about where things are now?" I looked him dead in the eye. And I said, "I think my wife is sleeping with someone again." Rachel froze. Eric blinked. Just once. Then Rachel laughed. It was the fakest, driest laugh I've ever heard. "What? Again? Jesus, are we really doing this?" I turned to her. "Yes, we are. Because I've seen the messages." She stopped laughing. Her face went pale. Eric shifted in his seat. "What messages?" she said, but her voice was already trembling. "Yours. With him." I looked back at Eric. His face didn't move. Not a twitch. But I could see the blood drain from it. Rachel turned to him like she expected him to fix it, to say something smart and measured. But he said nothing. "I found your messages," I said again, quieter this time. "I heard your voice." Now her eyes welled. But there were no tears yet. "You went through my phone?" she asked, like that was the offense. Like that was the betrayal. "No. You left it out. Unlocked. Like you wanted me to see it." Eric cleared his throat. "This isn't." "Don't." I cut in. "Don't therapize this. Don't wrap it in soft language. You had sex with my wife. You lied to me for months. You let me bleed in front of you while you held her hand. I never meant to hurt her. Of course you didn't. Because you never cared about me. You just wanted her. And you used your position to get her." Rachel finally spoke. "It wasn't planned. It just happened." I laughed. This time my laugh was dry. "You said that last time." Word for word. The room went still. Eric looked at the floor. Rachel stared at the couch cushion between us like it might open and swallow her. "I trusted you," I said to both of them. "And you broke something that doesn't get rebuilt." Rachel whispered, "I'm sorry." Eric said nothing. I stood up. "I won't be coming back. To this room. Or to you." I walked out. Rachel followed me into the hallway. "Wait," she said, grabbing my arm. "Please. Don't do this like this." I looked at her. "I needed you to be honest. Just once. And you couldn't even give me that." I pulled my arm free. Her voice cracked. "You said you'd never stop loving me." I turned back. And I didn't. I just stopped respecting myself enough to keep doing it. Then I left. I drove for hours. No music. No destination. Just me and the echo of their voices in my head. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But something inside me died that day. Not love. Not trust. Just the version of me who believed I wasn't disposable. But in that death, something else was born. A voice. Small. Steady. Saying, enough. I was done being a victim in someone else's game. And for the first time in months, I felt real again. Alive again. Angry. Clear. Unafraid. And finally, ready to burn what needed burning. I didn't go home that night. I didn't even think about where I was driving. I just kept going out of the city, through 2 toll booths, until the lights got sparse and the sky turned into a black canvas of silence. I found a cheap motel off the interstate. Cash only. No questions asked. The kind of place that smelled like bleach and loneliness. I sat on the bed for hours. No TV. No phone. Just me, the hum of a wall-mounted air conditioner, and the quiet roar of everything I'd held in for too long. At some point, I slept. When I woke up, I checked my phone. 6 missed calls from Rachel. 2 voicemails. 4 texts. Please. Just talk to me. You're blowing this up. It's not what you think. Eric's going to step back. It doesn't have to be the end. You said we were stronger than this. I didn't reply. I stayed in that motel for 3 nights. On the second day, I got a call from my brother. He asked if everything was okay. Apparently, Rachel had reached out to him, said I was spiraling, that I wasn't well, that she was worried I might hurt myself. She was building a story. Even now, she wasn't taking responsibility, she was painting a narrative. I told my brother the truth. Every detail. I could hear his silence harden on the other end of the line. You need anything, he said, you call me. Day or night. That was the first time I felt like I wasn't losing everything. I went home on the 4th day. Rachel was waiting in the kitchen. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of everything had finally landed on her. You wouldn't talk to me, she said, voice hoarse. You just disappeared. You disappeared first, I said. You just took longer to leave. She tried to cry. Real or fake? I couldn't tell anymore. I know you hate me, she said. But I didn't mean for this to happen. It started slow. You just listened. You shut down after I cheated. You forgave me, but you never opened back up. He did. I let her talk. She said all the things you expect someone to say when they're trying to frame betrayal as confusion, as miscommunication, as pain. But none of it moved me. Because this time, I wasn't hurt. I was done. This wasn't about Eric, I said. Not really. If it wasn't him, it would have been someone else. She didn't deny it. I kept thinking you'd stop, I said. That maybe, deep down, you'd find your way back to us. But you didn't. You found a way out instead. She shook her head. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. She looked at me, and for the first time, she didn't try to argue. She just stood there, defeated, like someone waiting for a sentence. Are you going to divorce me? She asked. I didn't answer. I just walked past her, up the stairs, into the room we used to share. I packed a bag. When I came back down, she was still standing in the same spot. Where are you going? Somewhere honest. She looked at me like she didn't understand the word. That night, I moved into a small apartment my friend was renting out short-term. Mattress on the floor. No furniture. Just 4 walls and a door that locked. It felt better than home. Rachel called once more. Left a voicemail. I still love you. I hope you'll remember that, even if you never come back. I didn't delete it. I didn't listen to it again, either. Instead, I started documenting everything. Screenshots. Dates. Timeline. All of it. Not for revenge. For truth. For the record. Because some betrayals don't deserve closure. They deserve consequence. The complaint was submitted on a Wednesday. It took me 4 days to write. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew exactly what to say. Every sentence carried weight. Every detail had to be precise. Not emotional, not reactive, just the truth. Documented. Measured. Unshakable. The state board had a formal process. Ethics violations involving licensed therapists, especially ones involving dual relationships with clients, were taken seriously, or so the website said. I submitted everything. Screenshots. Timestamps. Her messages. His responses. The session logs that aligned too perfectly with the texts. I didn't expect an immediate result. Bureaucracy doesn't move quickly. But that wasn't the point. The point was, I refused to let silence protect the guilty anymore. Life in the apartment was quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't hurt, just lets you hear yourself again. I had a mattress, a folding chair, a single lamp, and my phone. And for the first time in months, I started sleeping. I went to work. I cooked. I jogged in the evenings. I started reading again, not self-help books, but fiction. Stories that had nothing to do with betrayal or pain. Just something to remind me that the world was bigger than what she'd done to me. Rachel texted a few times. Once to ask if I wanted to talk. Another time to say she understood if I didn't. She didn't know I had filed the complaint. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Not until I had confirmation it had been received. 2 weeks later, I got the email. We have received your formal complaint against Dr. Eric Lyman. An internal investigation has been opened. You may be contacted for further information. That was it. 1 paragraph. No promises. No timelines. No indication of justice. But I read it 4 times. And each time, I felt a little more real. I started therapy again. With someone new. A woman this time, older, clear-eyed, with a way of listening that made me feel like I didn't have to perform. I didn't tell her everything on the first day. just that my marriage had ended, that I had spent too long ignoring myself. She said, "That's more than most people realize in a year." We talked about trust, about what it means to be betrayed not just by someone you love, but by someone whose literal job is to help you heal. It wasn't just personal, I said. It was strategic, clinical. He used his role to gain access to her, and he used me to look innocent. She nodded. "And he used your silence to stay safe." I stared at the floor for a long time, then said, "Not anymore." A month passed. I started seeing my brother more. He stopped asking about Rachel. He just invited me over for dinner, talked about work, made me laugh again. My parents called. They'd heard something from Rachel's side of the family. Vague rumors about problems, but no specifics. I told them the truth. Not all of it, but enough. My father went quiet, then said, "You didn't deserve that." That night, I cried for the first time since it all broke. Not for her, not even for us. For the version of me that had lived so long trying to earn love that should have been given freely. 6 weeks after I filed the complaint, I got another email. "We are continuing our investigation into Dr. Lyman. We have identified a potential pattern of inappropriate conduct with multiple clients. Your testimony has been invaluable." I sat with that sentence for a long time. Multiple clients. He hadn't just done this with Rachel. He had done it before. How many others had sat in that same chair, confessed their deepest wounds, while he positioned himself to step into their lives like a savior, only to twist it? My stomach turned. But beneath the nausea, something else grew. Validation. I hadn't been crazy. I hadn't been overreacting. I had seen it, felt it, and this time, I hadn't looked away. 2 months after that, a letter arrived by mail. An official envelope. Return address, State Licensing Board. Inside, one sheet of paper. "Dear," name redacted. "This letter is to inform you that following a formal investigation and internal review, the license of Dr. Eric Lyman has been revoked, effective immediately. Dr. Lyman has been found in violation of ethical standards related to dual relationships, client exploitation, and professional misconduct. We thank you for your courage in coming forward." I read it once, twice, then folded it back into the envelope. I didn't jump for joy. I didn't cheer. I just sat there, letting the silence surround me. But this time, it didn't feel empty. It felt finished. Rachel never called again. Maybe she heard. Maybe she didn't. Maybe someone told her, or maybe Eric did before he vanished into whatever pit of professional shame he now lived in. I never asked, because that chapter was over. Not with revenge, not with rage, but with truth, and the simple power of saying, "You don't get to keep doing this just because no one stops you." They say silence is the absence of sound, but I've learned it's not. Silence is full, heavy, alive. It holds everything you didn't say, everything you wish you'd said, and everything you're finally ready to leave behind. For a long time, my silence protected the wrong people. I swallowed truths to keep peace. I walked gently around landmines, hoping they'd forget I was even there. I gave the benefit of the doubt to people who used it like a shield. But that kind of silence costs you something. It cost you yourself. It's been 6 months since the letter. I never saw Eric again. Never heard his voice. I sometimes wonder what he told himself. What version of the story he crafted to survive losing everything. Maybe he blamed me. Maybe he blamed her. Maybe he never accepted blame at all. I don't care. And Rachel? She moved out of the house 2 weeks after I left. I heard from a mutual friend that she tried to keep the place, but eventually sold it. She said it was full of memories she didn't want to live with. That made me laugh when I heard it. The house was full of my memories too. The difference is, mine were real. I don't tell many people what happened. Not because I'm ashamed, but because once you speak a story like this out loud, it changes. Becomes entertainment. Commentary. Something for people to have opinions about. And this isn't a story I need judged. It's one I had to live. Now, I live differently. I ask better questions. I listen when my body says, something's off. I don't hand out unearned trust like it's candy. But I'm not bitter. That surprises people. They expect rage, fire, vengeance. They ask if I hate her, if I want her to suffer. I don't. I don't want anything from her anymore. That, I think, is what real freedom feels like. The hardest part of healing wasn't letting go of her. It was letting go of the version of me that stayed for so long. That man, the one who sat on a therapist's couch begging for scraps of honesty, who bent himself into knots trying to be enough for someone who had already left him. I grieved him. Because he tried. Because he believed. He wasn't weak. He was just loyal to the wrong idea. I started journaling. Nothing deep, just quiet reflections. Fragments of thoughts that didn't make sense in the moment, but did later. One entry, written late one night, said, "Healing isn't a finish line. It's a decision you keep making every time you wake up not to live in the same room where someone else left their damage." I reread that line often. A few months ago, I ran into someone from our old life. A friend of hers. A woman named Laura who used to come over for dinner parties and book clubs and fire pit nights in the fall. She looked surprised to see me. Said I looked good. Stronger. She hesitated, then asked, "Do you miss her?" I thought about it. Not the way she left. Not the night she lied. Not the betrayal. But the way she used to sing in the kitchen. The way she danced barefoot across hardwood floors. The way she laughed with her whole face before it all became performative. "I miss the idea of who I thought she was," I said. Laura nodded like she understood. "She's not with Eric anymore," she added. I didn't ask, but I wasn't surprised. That kind of connection, the one built on secrecy and brokenness, doesn't survive the light. I've thought a lot about justice. What it really means. We like to think it's loud, courts, headlines, public shame. But real justice? It's quiet. It's waking up and realizing you're no longer angry. No longer waiting for an apology that'll never come. It's knowing that the people who hurt you no longer get to define you. It's the silence they left behind and how you finally made peace with it. A few weeks ago, I went on a second date with someone. She's not extraordinary in the way Rachel was, not dazzling or effortlessly charming. She's soft-spoken, reads a lot, teaches high school English. On our second date, she asked me a strange question. She said, "What's something you learned the hard way that you're now strangely grateful for?" I didn't answer right away. I looked out over the patio where we were eating, the glow of string lights flickering on her glasses. Then I said, "I learned that forgiveness without accountability is just enabling. That love isn't supposed to require self-erasure. And that sometimes the people who break you do you a favor. Because now you get to rebuild as someone they don't recognize anymore." She didn't say anything, just smiled, and reached across the table. There's a different kind of silence now. One that isn't heavy or painful. It lives in the new apartment, where the light hits the wall just right in the morning. Where there's a bookshelf I'm slowly filling. Where there's no one lying to me from across the table. It's the sound of peace. Of knowing. Of living in a story I'm not ashamed of anymore. That's the cost of silence. And I've paid it in full.